Hello guys, welcome to the Med Concepts of Bhavya. This is Bhavya Sharma here today with another video which is going to be a continued video of the shoulder joint anatomy series. As you people must be knowing, the first video that I uploaded in my channel was on the shoulder joint anatomy, and because of some particular reasons I couldn't continue with the movements and with the clinical anatomy of the shoulder joint. So today we would be completing the shoulder joint anatomy series with this last part, that is the third part video for the shoulder joint anatomy. So let's get started. So first, recapping about the first two videos, in the first part of the shoulder joint anatomy video, we talked about the introduction of the shoulder joint, the type, the articulation and the ligaments that are associated with the shoulder joint. And in the second part video, we talked about the relations of the shoulder joint, the blood supply, the nerve supply, and we just went for the overview of the movements, and I said that movements and muscles causing those movements and clinical anatomy would be taken in the next video. So here I am with the third part video in which we are going to talk about the movements of the shoulder joint and the muscles causing the movements at the shoulder joint and also the clinical anatomy of the shoulder joint. So first, let us talk about the total movements that we see at the shoulder joint. The movements are flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, horizontal abduction, horizontal adduction, and your circumduction. So now let us go through each one of those movements and talk about them in detail. The first movement that we talk about at the shoulder joint would be your flexion. That is, you can see in the notes over here, the flexion. So defining flexion, flexion is a movement of arm forwards and laterally. Okay, so defining again, flexion is a movement of the arm forward and laterally, as you can see in the picture shown in the screen. Now, before talking about the planes and axis, I would tell you that plane and axis of the joints have been already explained in a different video, in a separate video, to which the link I would be adding in my description. You can go and check that out first if it confuses you. So, yeah, talking about flexion, the plane of the flexion is sagittal. The axis at which the flexion occurs is mediolateral axis. Then, talking about range of motion. By range of motion, I mean every movement in our body or at a joint has a particular range. In that range, that movement is being performed. That is the normal range at which the movement occurs. So, for flexion, the range of motion is 0 degree to 180 degree. Now, talking about the muscles involved. As you can see in the picture, the muscles involved in the flexion would be the anterior fibers of deltoid. Before telling this, deltoid has 3 fibers, as we already know: the anterior fiber, the middle fiber, and the posterior fiber. So, in flexion, the muscles involved would be anterior fibers of deltoid, upper fibers of pectoralis major, coracobrachialis, and the short head of biceps brachii. I have also given the axis and planes little bit of summary here as well, but if you want to go thoroughly about what is planes and axis of the human body and how the movement occurs in the planes, you can go through the video which I would be linking in my description. Okay, so now going with the second movement. The second movement at the shoulder joint is extension, that is the opposite movement of the flexion. Defining extension, it would be the opposite definition of the flexion, that is movement of the arm backwards. Okay, so extension defines as movement of the arm backwards. Now, talking about the plane of extension, it would be same as flexion because these two movements occur in pair. See, when we talk about flexion and extension, these two movements occur in same plane. Abduction occurs along with the adduction in the same plane. Then you have medial and lateral rotation that occur in same plane. So they are like a pair of movements that would be occurring in the same plane and same axis. So the plane for extension is sagittal. Axis would be the mediolateral axis. The range of motion of extension is 40 degree to 60 degree. See, for the forward movement, that is for flexion, you had anterior fibers of deltoid. But here in the backward movement, you would have some back muscles and the posterior fibers of deltoid. So the muscles are posterior fibers of deltoid, teres major, latissimus dorsi, which is a back muscle, and the long head of triceps brachii. Please do not confuse long head with lateral head. It would be long head of triceps brachii. Now let's talk about the third movement, that is adduction. Please remember it is ADD, not ABD. Don't get confused with abduction and adduction. When you read thoroughly and when you know things very thoroughly and clearly, you would not be confused. So adduction is defined as the movement of arms towards the midline of the body. Okay, for example, when you hug yourselves, that is when you're adducting your arm or you're adducting your shoulders so that you can hug yourself. So adduction is defined as movement of the arm towards the midline of the body. Now, the plane in which adduction occurs is frontal. The axis is antero-posterior or anterior-posterior axis. And then talking about the range of motion, it would be from 0 degree to 50 degree. Now talking about the muscles involved, they will be anteriorly, you will have the pectoralis major, short head of biceps brachii and coracobrachialis. Posteriorly, the muscles that are involved in adduction are the latissimus dorsi, again the long head of triceps brachii as we saw in extension. In extension, we had both latissimus dorsi and long head of triceps, the same thing, and also the teres major. So, in adduction, we will have two compartment muscles, anterior muscles and posterior muscles. Next, talking about abduction. Abduction is the movement of arms or shoulder away from the midline. Okay, so abduction is a movement at the shoulder joint in which the arms would move away from the center line or midline. See, this is the midline. Okay, as you can see in the diagram, this is the midline. This is what is known as midline. So away from the midline would be abduction, that is abduction, and towards the midline would be the adduction, that is AD, adduction. Now, talking about abduction, I already defined it. Plane would be same and axis also would be same as adduction, that is plane would be the frontal plane, axis would be the anterior posterior axis, and the range of motion would be 0 degree to 180 degree. Now, when you talk about the muscles involved in abduction, you would have three paired regions, three paired range of motions in which different muscles would be acting. See, one thing, you have abduction and you also have a movement known as overhead abduction. That is taking your arm above your head. That is your overhead abduction. So, I told you the range of motion is 0 to 180 degree. So, from 0 to 90 degree of abduction, supraspinatus and deltoid muscle would be performing. From 90 degree to 180 degree, serratus anterior would be performing. From 90 degree to 180 degree, that is serratus anterior and trapezius would be performing. See, from 90 degree to 180 degree is only known as overhead abduction. So, from 0 to 90 degree, supraspinatus and deltoid, and from 90 to 180 degree, serratus anterior and trapezius would be performing abduction, that is your overhead abduction. See, if you remember, there is something called winging of scapula that we studied in scapular bone anatomy, right? If you can recall, we said that it occurs due to the paralysis of serratus anterior muscle, and due to the paralysis of serratus anterior muscle, we are not able to perform overhead abduction. So this is where it gets reconnected. So that is what you guys have to understand. Anatomy is about relating and understanding, not mugging up. Okay. Now let us talk about medial rotation. Medial rotation is also known as internal rotation. This is defined as a rotational movement towards the midline. Okay, so medial rotation is defined as the movement towards the midline, and the movement is rotational movement. It is also known as internal rotation. The plane would be transverse plane. The axis is the vertical axis, and the range of motion is 70 degree to 90 degree. Now muscles involved here are also in two compartments. In the anterior compartment, pectoralis major and anterior fibers of deltoid act to perform the medial rotation, and posteriorly you have the latissimus dorsi, the teres major, and the deep part of subscapularis muscle performing the medial rotation. Now next let us talk about the lateral rotation. The lateral rotation is just the vice versa of the medial rotation. That is, it is defined as the rotation away from the midline. Okay, and it is also known as external rotation. Now we take the plane, axis and ROM. That is, the plane would be transverse, the axis would be the vertical axis, and the range of motion would be about 70 degree to 90 degree. Muscles involved here would be posterior fiber of deltoid, infraspinatus, and teres minor. See, I know it's hard to remember the muscles performing the movement, but I'm giving all the diagrams of these movements in the screen, right? So when you focus and go thoroughly about the movement, when you see and try to understand or analyze and visualize how the movement is occurring, you would literally be able to understand ki, okay, these are the muscles which would be performing because this is going anteriorly, this movement is going laterally. So this side of muscles would be acting, that side of muscles would be performing. So this is all about understanding. So understand the diagram, understand how the movement is occurring. Also, by looking at the diagrams, please perform these movements in your own body and you will feel the muscles performing, you will feel the muscles moving. And this is how you can learn it better. Imagining, visualizing and analyzing will make you learn this better. Okay, it is not hard. Please do not panic. Do as I said and it will be easy. Now let us talk about horizontal adduction, that is adduction. So horizontal adduction is also known as horizontal flexion. It is defined as the flexion movement, that is the forward movement of arm, but in a horizontal way or in the transverse plane, as you can see in the diagram. The range of motion here would be 0 degree to 135 degree. And the muscles involved would be deltoid and pectoralis major. Easy, right? Now let us talk about horizontal abduction. Horizontal abduction is also known as horizontal extension. So yeah, one more point that I have to add in adduction would be horizontal adduction is the movement that is forward movement, that is horizontal flexion, but towards the body. Adduction is always towards the body, right? And in horizontal abduction that we were talking now, that is horizontal extension also, which is also known as the horizontal extension, there would be the movement of the arm away from the body. Okay, so the range of motion we see here is 0 degree to 45 degree, and there is only one primarily muscle involving in horizontal abduction, that is your deltoid. Now we are going to talk about the last one, which is your circumduction. Circumduction is best seen in ball and socket joints like your shoulder joint, your hip joint, but can also be seen in wrist joint and other finger joints, etc. But now talking about circumduction in shoulder, it is a combination of different movements. What are those different movements? Those movements are flexion, extension, abduction and adduction. So circumduction is combination of flexion, extension, abduction and adduction. For example, a bowler spinning a ball is actually circumducting his shoulder joint for spinning the ball and throwing the ball to the batsman. Okay. Now, the range of motion here would be 0 degree to 360 degree. Guys, we have gone through all the movements of the shoulder joint. We have also seen the diagrams. We have been thorough about the shoulder joint movements as well. And now we would be talking about the clinical anatomy that we see or that we have in our shoulder joint. We already know that whenever we talk about a joint, the first thing that we talk about it in the clinical anatomy is the dislocation. So here we would be talking about two dislocations, that is, one is of the clavicle. What happens is the medial end or the medial part of the clavicle dislocates forwards, that is towards the front. And what you have to note here is backward dislocation is very rare. Now, why do you say that backward dislocation is very rare? This can be a Viva question as well or 2 marks question as well. Why it is rare that we don't have a backward dislocation in clavicle? The answer is because it has a support, a strong support of the costoclavicular ligament. Okay. Now, another dislocation that you can see is upward dislocation, in which you have the dislocation at the acromioclavicular joint. See, acromioclavicular joint is the joint between the acromion and clavicle, right? We have already seen that in the clavicle anatomy. So what happens here is clavicle overrides the acromion, that is clavicle goes above or moves above the acromion, and that is why there is an upward dislocation in the acromioclavicular joint. See, please don't get confused. Acromioclavicular joint is a part of the shoulder joint complex only. Okay. Then let's talk about the dislocation of the shoulder. Shoulder joint is most prone to dislocation. Why? Because I already told you in the introduction, it is more mobile joint and less stable. Why? Because the head of the humerus is 4 times larger than the glenoid cavity, and thus there is less stability but more mobility when you compare it with the hip joint of the lower limb. So, what happens when there is dislocation of shoulder? Dislocation of shoulder usually occurs when the arm is abducted. Abducted means what? That is away from the center of the body. What is the reason or what is the cause of the shoulder dislocation? What happens is, see, in humerus, in shoulder joint, there is a lower unsupported part, okay, of the capsular ligament. See, you have a capsular ligament in all those joints, right? All the joints have capsular ligament. In the capsular ligament, there is a lower unsupported part. Okay, we have already studied about this in part 1. So, in the capsular ligament, there is a lower unsupported part. In that part, what happens is the head of humerus presses against that lower unsupported part. So, obviously, by common sense, what would happen? It is an unsupported part. It doesn't has a good support. It is not strongly supported. So, when the head of humerus presses against that unsupported part, there will be dislocation. And then what happens is it endangers the axillary nerve that is closely related to the humerus, right? Because you have the humerus and you have the axillary nerve closely related to the humerus. So it endangers the axillary nerve also. That means there can be a damage or a lesion or an injury to axillary nerve as well. Now, the third clinical anatomy that we see is the shoulder tip pain, which is also known as referred pain. Referred pain is a 2-mark question according to my question bank, and I think it would be a 2-mark question for everybody else as well. So, what happens here is there is irritation of peritoneum underlying diaphragm. Now, definitely you people will have question about what is peritoneum. Peritoneum is a serous membrane. Okay, it is a membrane lining that is lining your abdominal cavity. So what happens is there is irritation of peritoneum. And now, why there is irritation of peritoneum? Because there is some pathology surrounding the shoulder. Okay, because of some pathology means some disease or some problem that is surrounding the shoulder, there will be irritation of the peritoneum, that is the serous membrane lining the abdominal cavity. Now, the basic question that comes here is, why does the pathology in the peritoneum cause shoulder tip pain? How can it cause shoulder tip pain? Because what happens is the phrenic nerve, which carries impulses from the peritoneum, and the supraclavicular nerve, which carries impulses from the skin over the shoulder, are both arising from the same spinal segment. Next thing that we can discuss here is the aspiration of the shoulder joint. See, aspiration means sucking of some liquid. Okay, so by using aspirating materials, you take out the liquid around the shoulder joint so that you can diagnose the pathology or something like that. So for that, there are two ways in which shoulder joint can be aspirated. One is the needle of aspiration introduced anteriorly through the deltopectoral triangle. As you can see on the screen, this is the deltopectoral triangle. Okay, so in that area, you introduce your needle anteriorly to the deltopectoral triangle and aspirate the shoulder joint. Otherwise, you will just laterally go below the acromion, introduce your needle just laterally below the acromion and do the aspiration of the shoulder joint. So the last clinical anatomy, or you can say the pathology of shoulder joint, is frozen shoulder. This is most of the times asked in Viva and many of the times is also asked in 2 marks. So shoulder joint, that is our shoulder joint, has a pathology which is known as frozen shoulder. Now by frozen shoulder, what do we mean? See, I already told you that all the joints have synovial lining, synovial membrane, right? So what happens is, in shoulder joint, 2 layers of synovial membrane. See, synovial membrane is present in layers, okay? So what happens is, the synovial membrane layers, any 2 layers of the synovial membrane become adherent to each other. Adherent means they stick to each other. They get attached to each other or they get merged with each other. So what happens is, there'll be increasing pain in the shoulder, there'll be stiffness of the joint, there'll be restriction of all movements, especially external rotation, that is your lateral rotation, abduction, and your medial rotation, which is also known as your internal rotation. And it usually occurs in old-aged people or mid-aged people, that is 40 to 60 years. The complaints that I already discussed is increasing pain in the shoulder, there'll be stiffness of the joint, that is you cannot move the joint very easily, there'll be pain while moving the joint because there'll be restriction of all the movements like external rotation, abduction, and medial rotation. And also what will happen is disuse atrophy. Disuse atrophy means when you don't have movements. See, I told you the complaints are there'll be stiffness of joint and there'll be restrictions of all the movements. So when movements are not occurring, muscles would be disused, right? Muscles would go for wasting. So there'll be disused atrophy of surrounding muscles. So this is all about your frozen shoulder, which is a pathology of your shoulder joint. So hey guys, this is all about your shoulder joint, and finally we have completed the shoulder joint series as well. In today's video, we talked about the movements of the shoulder joint and the muscles causing them. We also talked about the clinical anatomy, some pathologies and some clinical use that is occurring at the shoulder joint. And we are now done with the shoulder joint anatomy. As always, any queries or any doubts, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you have any ideas of making videos, like if you want me to make videos on some specific topic, please let me know that also in the comment section below. And the notes are already ready and would be uploaded in my Insta page. The link to my Insta page would be in my description. And yes, keep sharing, keep subscribing, like, and always do support. Thanks for watching.